Good to go, Amy? Yes. Okay, great. Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Constable Danny McKinnon. I'm the Public Information Officer today with the Winnipeg Police Service. Today we have an update on a homicide as well as 3 serious assaults that have taken place on Main Street. We've done several releases on this. And so I'll start by doing the regular updated release, and then I'm going to do a synopsis of all of these events before we take questions, okay? The Homicide Unit has identified 2 suspects now in the murder of Danielle Ballantyne and 2 serious assaults in the 600 and 800 block of Main Street that occurred the morning of August 22nd. On August 24th, yesterday, members of the Homicide Unit charged a 15-year-old youth male with second-degree murder and aggravated assault ×2. He was detained in custody. As well, a Canada-wide warrant for second-degree murder and aggravated assault ×2 has now been issued for a second youth male. The Homicide Unit continues with this investigation and the related assaults. It says the related aggravated assaults, but it should say basically all of the assaults. Anyone with information or who wishes to speak to investigators is urged to call the Homicide Unit 204-986-6508, or you can also call Crime Stoppers 204-786-TIPS. We'd also just like to acknowledge the Winnipeg Police Service has been collaborating with community organizations supporting families of MMIW G2S plus persons to provide a trauma-informed and culturally safe support network for Danielle's family. Okay, so that's the release we just did today. And now I'm just going to go over a synopsis because we have provided a lot of information and I've received quite a few questions over the last few days, so I just want to get everything very clarified. You might want to take some notes and we can go over questions. Okay, so the morning of August 22nd, at approximately 4:30 a.m., police responded for a seriously injured male in his 50s in a parking lot beside an apartment in the 800 block of Main Street. He was located with traumatic injuries and transported in critical condition, and he still remains in critical condition. Half an hour later, at about 5 a.m., police responded for another seriously injured male at the rear of a hotel in the 600 block of Main Street. He was also transported in critical condition, and his condition still remains the same. At 5:30 a.m., patrol officers were flagged down by an injured male in his 50s at Logan and Disraeli, and he advised that he had been assaulted. He was transported to hospital in stable condition. Then at about 7 a.m., police were summoned while in the area for the report of a deceased female in an apartment at 189 Jarvis Avenue. She was later identified as 36-year-old Danielle Ballantyne. So, based on all of these incidents, the Homicide Unit, as well as the Major Crimes Unit, collaborated, and they believed that these assaults and the homicides were related, and that relationship was with respect to the suspects involved. Now, however, 2 suspects were identified with respect to the homicide and the 2 aggravated assaults. So that's the 2 serious incidents in the 600 and 800 block of Main. The assault at Logan and Disraeli is still under investigation and the suspects have not been established. We mentioned this a few days ago in our release, but investigators believe there are potentially other victims who were assaulted and have not met with police. Police want to help these victims and hopefully glean more information about the suspects by speaking with them. More arrests could be a factor, potentially for the assault in the 800 block. We know that the 2 people have been identified, but there could possibly be some other suspects involved in that one. As well as I just mentioned, the Disraeli and Logan assault has not been completed. And now I will take questions.
Is there anything that connects the victims of the assault?
No, we believe that the linkage is with the suspects.
What can you say about that?
Yeah. You know what? This is terrible and not the answer I want to provide to you, but it appears that all of these incidents are random attacks.
Can you say if it's gang related at all, or no?
We don't have the motive established, nothing that I can provide to you. It does appear random.
Is a certain group being targeted here? We've seen in other cities, homeless people in particular are being subject to serious assaults like this.
Well, just like I mentioned, we're not establishing a linkage between the victims. So that area of the city, it's densely populated with close-knit community members, but there is a large population of vulnerable people that are present there day and night. I mean, these attacks all occurred early in the morning, but there's certainly people that continue to frequent the hotels or the areas. Some people that are displaced or homeless will be in that area often. So we don't have a motive to say that a specific type of victim was targeted, no.
Were the victims vulnerable or homeless? Are you able to say that?
I can't indicate that.
I believe it was said that guns weren't involved. Is there any information you can give about how they were assaulted?
Yeah, so none of these incidents have been identified as shootings. That's what we were talking about in respect to gun crime. I cannot discuss the types of injuries that any of these victims have. Remember, we have to remember that although we're giving quite a bit of information here today, this is still a homicide investigation and some very serious other assaults and potentially some other assaults that just have not been identified. So we can't give too much information on that.
Are you able to say whether any weapon was involved?
I can't do that. No, sorry, Eric.
The assaults appear to be all outside, but the homicide was in an apartment. Is that victim at all known to the suspects?
Well, what I can say in terms of what we originally said was the victim, Danielle Ballantyne, was located in the apartment. So I can't speak to if that's where the homicide took place, that's where she was discovered. There's still more work to be done. And again, obviously with it being a homicide investigation, we have to be quite guarded in what we can provide.
That you believe there's still more suspects and that these crimes all appear to be random. Is there a risk to the public?
Yeah, that's a question we've received a number of times over the last 2 days. We completely understand that. I feel the same way. My colleagues feel the same way. But what I can say is that the District 3 police resources, so that's the community support and the foot patrol, they have been extra present in that area. So they've been patrolling, they've been interacting with the community, interacting with the community advocates that work in that area, you know, another set of eyes and ears, and everybody's really working together to look out for each other.
Are you looking at these suspects in regards to any other assaults beyond this kind of spree?
We're not looking outside of the scope. Right now, we're containing it to what we have, which is quite a wide investigation with a lot of different parts involved.
What's the age of the second suspect?
The second suspect? You know what? I can't provide you that. I can just say that he's a youth. He's a teenager as well, but I can't get into any specifics about him right now.
And part of my question, because I know the YCGA in some cases allows youth suspects to be named. Just can you say why that?
Yeah, why we haven't done that right now.
Yeah.
Right. So in certain circumstances, we can release that information. We do require authorization by a judge. This information with the arrest yesterday and now the warrant, it's all happened quite quickly. Investigators are actively taking steps to identify this person, and when that needs to happen, it certainly will happen. And of course, we will get it to the public when the time is necessary.
Have these suspects been previously involved or charged for any other offenses?
I'm sorry, I can't tell you that.
So there's a counterwide warrant. I know that's generally how secondary murder
Murder,
work,
yeah.
right? But I mean, is there any reason to believe he may not be in Winnipeg, or is he, or investigators looking in Winnipeg?
I haven't been provided any of that information to share. I think investigators have made it sound like they're looking in the area.
Going off my colleague's question, can you say whether they were known to police?
It's the same answer. I have to be really careful about what I can share. We also have to remember that although we're sharing this with the media and the community, there's also always a risk that a suspect could flee. So, we don't want to give too much information regarding the potential suspects.
In that area of downtown, there's lots of security cameras, there's, lots of people kind of out and about. Did any of that play in identifying the suspect?
Yeah, of course. That's natural. Today's day and age, that's part of an investigation. That's one of the go-tos. Many businesses, many homes, many dash cams all have surveillance, and that's something that investigators turn to quite readily.
And going off Kelly's question here, I mean, there's a number of scenes across a small area. I mean, can you just walk us through in broad strokes what that means for investigators to do their job?
Yeah, in terms of resources, right? It's there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of units involved. So right from the beginning, General Patrol would respond to these events. If you get a call that there's an injured person or an assault, General Patrol attends that call. Once they've established that this is a very serious assault or a homicide, that's when the scene must be held. And that means then we have our forensic identification section. They come, and that's when photographs and evidence is collected as well. The neighbors are canvassed. And then it gets passed on to the investigative units. Well, I shouldn't say passed on, but that's when the investigative units take over the scene. And this primarily went to the major crimes unit. And then shortly after, once the homicide was determined to be linked, homicide overseed all of these events, and they're still working with major crimes as well.
Is there anything you can say about how these suspects are related?
How the suspects are related?
Yeah.
I don't have information that I can provide on that, no.
So the Logan and Disraeli assault, are police saying that's not connected to this spree, or it's just it hasn't been established yet?
So just to be clear, investigators believe that it's part of all of these attacks, but some work still has to be done on who the suspects were.
So they could be others.
They could be, but as you can see by the charges, second-degree murder and aggravated assault ×2, and that's the warrant. That would not speak to that Logan and Disraeli. Although it was an assault, it was not an aggravated assault. That means it's not as serious in nature for injuries.
Just to follow up to that, your officers would probably be looking for a couple more things, but maybe could you explain, there's one murder here and 2 very serious assaults. What would it take for those aggravated assault charges to become attempted murder charges?
That's a question that I'm not going to provide a lot of answer to. Our investigators work in consultation with the Crown. The Crown makes those decisions. The police does not. We provide our evidence, our grounds, and they work with the Crown. Should the state of the 2 critical individuals right now change and worsen, that will have to go before the Crown.
In the past, when we've seen a spree of kind of random attacks like that, later on in court, it's associated with gang initiation.
Yeah.
And being that one of the assaults you're still looking for suspects, is that an avenue of investigation that you're looking into?
I think the investigators who are extremely skilled and seasoned that are working on this, they're exploring all avenues. That would be something that they would consider. They're exploring all avenues. They're interviewing many, many people. They'll interview associates. They've interviewed businesses. Yeah.
What leads you to believe that there's other potential victims?
That there's other potential victims. So I can't get much into the investigational piece of that, but I think I'll just clarify by saying there's been some evidence that indicates that.
know you provided an answer sort of along these same lines a bit earlier, but for someone walking in that area or even, downtown around this area, which is only just a few blocks away, would you be able to tell them that it's still safe to do so?
Well, I knew that question would be asked, and what I would say is what we would say on any given day, not just specific to this string of events, although this certainly has community members and citizens very heightened. If you don't have to be outside in dark areas for any reason, don't be. And again, that's where we're really going to rely on our extra police vigilance, but also those community partners that we have. They're just excellent. They know the people that frequent the areas. They know the people that are vulnerable. They work with them. They take care of them. They look out for them. And they will continue to do that. And they will continue to connect with police. But I think we all do play a role. So if you're driving to work or you're driving home from work and you see something suspicious or violent, number one, and we always say this, number one, make sure you're safe. Get out of the area, stop and call the police. Just call the police and police will be there quickly. Provide the information. Any other questions?
Just looking at this timeline, do investigators really think that it was kind of like one assault happened, walk to the next place, another assault, go to the next place, another assault, like it was
Yes,
string?
yes.
Oh.
Because police were already in the area for the first one and then the second one, and just, usually it's not just one unit that shows up for a serious incident. So police were already in the area.
Did it start with the murder of Danielle Ballantyne?
No, at 7:00, we were alerted to a deceased individual, Danielle Ballantyne.
Right, but that's when she was found, right? So
Yeah, that's when she was found. I can't speak to the timeline of the murder, but that is when police were alerted to this.
And I suspect you won't be able to answer this, but it wasn't quite clear earlier. So at this point, investigators aren't saying that Ballantyne was necessarily assaulted in that apartment. That hasn't been established.
It's not that it hasn't been established, it's information I can't provide.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.